Hey, Run Try Bike community. Welcome to the 139th episode of our Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Today, we are joined by Dina Grimaldi, who we have featured in a How It All Started story on our site back on October 1st. I was introduced to Dina by Hunter Ralston of Women on Wheels, and my first conversation with her was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to chatting with her today. But before we bring Dina on, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network where you get your podcast. We have 8 shows, which means there is something for everyone. From shows like this one, the Fireside Chat with Q&A conversations, to laughter on our Fiery Embers and our Food Fight Friday at the Aid Station show, to music in our What's in Your Earbud show. So that's all to say that you'll find something you will enjoy. That means there's something for everybody on our network. So without delaying any further, let's bring Dina onto the show and talk about her journey into triathlon, why she coaches, and her disordered eating struggles. Hey, Dina, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jason, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I just realized how scripted the "Hey, Dina, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me" sounds in comparison to everything else. I got to work on that intro part.
It's all good.
So you and I talked almost exactly 2 months ago, a little bit over 2 months ago, for your How It All Started feature, which we published on October 1st. And I had a blast chatting with you and laughing and getting to learn more about you. And I'm hoping that our audience is going to be able to feel that as well. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about is triathlon and the journey you've had from a swimming background. Not many people come from a swimming background into triathlon. They are typically adult onset swimmers, right? They can ride a
Mhm.
bike, they can run, and swimming is just a thing that they have to get through.
Yep.
But for you with the swimming background, what's the biggest challenge in transitioning from that to now including running and cycling into this sport of triathlon, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I guess because I grew up as a swimmer, I don't know. When I first started running, I sort of had to force myself to do it because I really hated it for like almost a solid 2 years. I swam in college and I was like, my dad runs, I'm gonna pick up running, and I despise it. I was like, swimming's my thing. I just want to do that. And I don't know, it was so different to just pick up these other sports. And especially like doing my first triathlon, I'm a fairly strong swimmer, at least in triathlon world. As far as swimming itself, I'm not nothing spectacular, but for triathlon, I am one of the quicker people out of the water. And like I learned right away in my first race that like it's not all that cool because it just means that everybody and their mother is gonna pass you on the bike. Like I did my first couple of races I did them on a mountain bike. My dad did put road tires on them, so it wasn't like these enormous tires, but it was a mountain bike, and I hung out on the right and watched everybody go whoosh, whoosh. So it was like kind of overcoming that mental like, oh god, I that swim was so quick and I crushed it, and now I'm being totally destroyed for I don't know what 85% of the rest of the race because the swimming portion is so short proportionally compared to the rest of it. So that was definitely a
Help
big challenge at the beginning.
help a swimming challenged athlete, that's me, understand what it's like to get into T1 and having all the bikes there, because usually when I get into T1 there are no bikes left. It's easy to spot mine because I'm like, that's the one, there it is, I can go grab it and move on. So when you get into T1, because transition is an important part of the sport of triathlon, I liken it to putting in golf, right? Every stroke matters in golf. So every second, every minute matters. When you're that fast out of the water in comparison to other athletes, what's it like to see the sea of bikes and try to figure out where you're at? Like, do you have tricks or tips that you use to be able to find your bike?
Not really. I mean, right now my all my bikes are like bright blue, so that kind of helps. So like the color of my shirt here. But there have definitely been times where I like temporarily forget what my number is, and I run by the row and have to do a backtrack there, or like, oh, where am I going? Because you're just like so excited and hyped in that moment, like you said, trying to be as quick as possible, especially in like a sprint try. Um, yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't have the perspective of the other other side of it coming into transition with no bikes. So I get that's funny. I never thought about that. How easy that would be. Like, oh, there it is. But yeah, I just try to remember my number and remember. Sometimes I'll count rows. I'll be like, okay, I know I'm coming in the water from this way, so I'm gonna be 4 rows in, and then there's my
Right.
bike. Once I get in the row, I can spot my bike and stuff pretty easily.
But if you're getting passed by everybody on the bike, so when you come into T2, you must be like, oh shit, where do I put my bike now?
Yeah, I guess that's the other challenge. You have to remember twice where your bike is racked. Yeah,
Like,
sometimes you come back in and, like, somebody's put their bike in the wrong spot or it's, like, all shoved up in and you're like, I don't have room for my bike. I gotta push your bike out of the way. Sorry, person."
so I have a funny story for you. I raced Ironman Maryland. The year was 2016, I think, and do the whole race. Go to pick up my bike at the end of the race with a buddy of mine, and my bike is not there. And I'm
Oh.
like, I am like, what in the heck is going on here? Like, I pull a volunteer over. I'm like, excuse me, how easy is it to get a bike out of transition if it doesn't belong to you? And he said, almost impossible. I'm like, well, it fucking happened because my bike isn't here. And the guy I was with was like, that can't have be right. He keeps walking. He goes to his bike where his bike is. And sure enough, I racked my bike at his bike rack number.
Oh my
It
god.
was his first Ironman. I was so focused on him doing well. He's a good friend of mine. I was so focused on him doing well that I remembered his bib number, but I didn't remember mine. And
That's
so I racked my
hilarious.
bike with his.
Nice, nice.
Good
That's
thing
so
it wasn't
funny.
a 70.3 because at 70.3s your run gear, all your gear is with you at your bike. Whereas at an
Mhm.
Ironman, it's in the changing tent, basically, right? You pick it up off the row and go into a changing tent.
Yeah,
So
that's right, the bags, yeah.
it's a good thing I would have picked up his bag and, and he would have had a screwed up race at the
Oh
end.
my god. That's so funny.
Speaking of Ironman, so going from a sprint try for yourself to crossing the Ironman finish line, your progression was gradual. How do you maintain that motivation and going from sprint to Ironman and avoid burnout throughout the process and help people understand the time frame between crossing your first sprint triathlon to your first Ironman?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get super excited about it, and I kinda did at the beginning when I decided I wanted to do an Ironman. I was like, "Oh, I gotta do this right away. I'm gonna do an Olympic, and then I'm gonna do a half, and then I'm gonna do this all in, like, a year." And then, obviously, it's longer than that to build up to it, and I think a big part of it was that I really truly began to love triathlon. I loved even running. I started to like running once I got a little better at it and got good at it, and I really liked the community, the triathlon community in Connecticut where I grew up and started to get into it. And I think that's super important because if you don't love the process and the training and each element of it, most elements, then it's not going to be fun. You're just going to be like, where's the finish line? When is this race going to be over? It becomes more of a chore. So the fact that I really loved it and I was doing races with my dad, which was awesome. We trained together. We did races together. We did local sprints, Olympics. Um, and I met a lot of people through that, so just, like, truly enjoying that whole thing, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not really in a rush because 'cause I'm enjoying all of this, and I'm gonna go one step at a time." Whereas if I was miserable and hated the training, then I think I probably woulda given up and quit and never done the full Ironman.
What do you think was the catalyst or the impetus for you to go from I hate running to I actually kind of enjoy this? What was that? What was that like? What was that moment?
I don't know if there was a particular moment. I know that there was something helpful early on. A friend of mine in college um, was talking about how he got into running, and so when I started running, like I didn't I didn't try to go out sprinting, but I didn't I wasn't it wasn't an easy pace, right? It wasn't a conversational pace. I was like pushing myself a little too hard. So he was talking to a group of us, and he was like, "Oh yeah, so when I start running, I run a half a mile like this," and he starts like jogging like barely faster than he could walk. And then he says, now I do another half mile like this. And he increased it a tiny bit. And then he said, and I just keep picking it up. And then I can go for like 7 miles and I feel awesome. And I was like, whoa, like you could start off like that easily. And that kind of reformed my mindset where like you don't have to start off at like what was probably more like a tempo moderate pace for me at the time, and like running that slowly and building. And like me in particular as an endurance athlete, like I feel better over time. I tend to negative split all my races. I feel better after time goes on. So that was kind of a revelation for me to not despise it, at least not dread going out for runs. And then I think as the progress happened, like as I saw myself getting faster and doing well in races, then I was like, oh, like those two things combined, and feeling good and seeing myself get faster. It was like, oh, I I actually kind of like this. And like finding challenges like running hills. Like I hated hills at the beginning, and then having this revelation, like, oh my god, like hills are cool. Like they make me feel accomplished and powerful. Little things like that along the way definitely helped.
Yeah, I have a mantra for myself, which is when in doubt, run the hillier route. Because of
Nice.
that exact point, which is it's empowering. I might be breathing super heavy, but when I get up the hill, I've gotten up the hill and I've conquered something. You
Yeah.
triggered a question in my mind, starting off too fast with running and not being able to sustain the distance, or the pace, I should say, for a distance. When you were swimming, were you a 100-meter, 200-meter swimmer where you had to sprint right out of the gate, or were you more of a long course swimmer and so you had to pace yourself, but somehow that connection of didn't translate to running?
Yeah, I was definitely not a sprinter. Still am not. I like the distance stuff. It's kind of the same deal. I feel better as I go on, like just a swim practice. I feel better as practice goes on. Um, so yeah, I don't know how that really running just felt so different to me when I started doing it. It felt so awkward and uncomfortable. Swimming is like, I don't know, like you have the whole breathing element. Running was like, oh my God, like my chest hurts. I'm getting these side stitches. Like, what is going on? I hate this. So I feel like it was just so different overall that I don't know, it's hard to compare the two.
What about cycling?
Yeah, that stuff, it's still my weakest of the three. I've gotten a lot better. I think that was easier to pick up than running just because of just like the variation that happens when you're out riding outside. Like, oh, there's hills and there's flat and there's downhills. It's like, you have these rides where you're riding on a flat stretch and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And, I could kind of do this all day. And then you go downhill, you're like, man, I love cycling. And then you go up a big hill and you're like, I fucking hate cycling. So I don't know. It's more of an adventure. Like you get to go somewhere, you get to see stuff. Uh, yeah, that was more exploration kind of.
I lived in Dallas for a long time and I rode with this guy, Jeff Folks. His nickname was Goat because he could climb on the bike like nobody else I've ever met. And I used to just chase him all over Dallas because he was just a much better cyclist than I was. And he'd be waiting for me at the top of every hill, breathing heavy,
Yeah.
just angry. But putting in that work got me to be a faster cyclist and a better cyclist. Question for you. So when you start to set baselines, and I don't know if you do this as a coach with your athletes or for yourself, right? I often do testing, right? So swim test, bike test, run test. So FTP, 20-minute run test, things like that. Of all the three tests that you use to set your baseline, which is the one you hate the most?
That would be the bike. Yeah, whenever I do those, I rename them on Strava. So like I used to do the 20-minute FTP test and I would call it like 20-minute FTP death. Or like they have the new test, it's called the ramp test where it just goes up in the ramp. So I renamed it ramp death. It's those are really hard.
When I first got into triathlon and Ironman, I did those 20-minute FTP tests, and it's just damn near impossible to hold that for 20 minutes. And then I found the 2 by 8 minute, and I was like, yeah, that's the one. Like if
Mm,
I can break it down mentally, I only air quotes have to do this for 8 minutes.
yep.
It's much easier for me to hang on until the end before I'm like, okay, I'm done with this shit. Like the FTP test is hard. It's
It
super hard.
it's brutal. No matter which one you do, it's
Yeah.
brutal.
Have you done them outside and on the trainer?
No, I've done them outside. I feel like everywhere I've ridden in life, there's hills everywhere, and I like the trainer because you can just be consistent.
Yeah.
There are no variables like that. There hills, cars, wind, whatever it is. You're at your pace, and I listen to music and just go.
For years, Texas Motor Speedway was the place to go because it was a 5-mile loop, and it was flat. There were no cars, and it was smooth as silk. And then they put chip and seal down, and it just
Oh
became
man,
like this teeth chattering, awful
yeah,
scenario. And so then FTP tests all went indoors from that point forward because
yep,
it was almost impossible to be able to hold any sort of effort while you're rattling all over the place and hoping that water bottles don't go flying everywhere.
right, yeah, makes sense.
So we talked a little bit about coaching. So in your coaching journey, you're helping athletes at various stages. What's the most common challenge you see amongst mostly newcomers, and how do you work with them to overcome those challenges so that they can continue to progress in sport?
I think a big one I see is that people they feel intimidated by the race they're doing, whatever distance it is, like particularly I guess the full Ironman if I'm coaching somebody doing their first full Ironman. they're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I just rode 60 miles. Like, how am I going to get to 112? Sort of that. It's a really a mental thing more than a physical thing. They sometimes think it's a physical thing, but and I keep encouraging them, like, this is a whole process. You're not going to jump from 60 to 112 miles. Like, we're going to get there over time. And then it's really cool to watch them see that, and that they, because I went through it myself. I was like amazed. I was like, oh my God, I just did my longest ride ever. Next weekend, I'm going to do my longest ride ever. And the weekend after that, I'm going to do my longest ride ever. So seeing that with them, seeing how they also see that, like, what their bodies can do, and to be impressed by that. And then to have that confidence after, like, oh my God, I can do it. I did do that. Maybe I could do it again. I can do other hard things. I think it's hard for them to overcome at first, but it's really cool when they do, they get to see that.
When have you seen it in your athletes when they overcome something hard in sport, that they're capable of doing things in life, right? That they didn't think they were capable of doing before. It's one of the things I love about coaching is when one of my athletes comes to me and says, "Oh, that thing I had to do at work, it was such a breeze because I was able to ride 112 miles at Ironman Lake Placid," or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a particular example, but I've heard people say similar things like that, where it's like, "Oh, this thing came up and it was stressful, but you know what? I did an Ironman. Like, I can handle that." So that's really cool to see that.
It's so cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is like one of the greatest rewards of coaching is when the athlete comes back to you, and they've done it in training, they've done it in a race, but then they talk about it outside of sport in life, the things that they've been able to overcome, or successfully complete, getting a promotion at work or things like that. To me, I just love those conversations outside of, yes, I increased my output of my watts on my bike by 20% or whatever it might be.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really cool.
Do you have friends and family by the name of Jim and Stacy?
I do. Are they speaking? Are
They
they
are on. They are on. They are on Instagram.
Hi,
Hi, Jim.
parents. Hi, mom and dad. Thanks
Mom and
for
Dad, if
tuning
you want
in.
to chime in, put it in there. I believe you told me, Dina, that your dad is responsible, shall we say, for you getting involved in these sports. You used to run with your dad when you were
Oh,
younger.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I blame him totally.
I blame is it like in a good way though, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I'm joking. Yeah, he started doing triathlons. Oh, dad, you can correct me if what is it? I think I was in high school, I think. Maybe even late middle school when he did his first one. So I joined him like partway through college, and then when I graduated college, I moved back in with my parents, lived with them for a while. So he and I did a lot of run training together. We had a handful of road races where we had, I called them epic sprint offs to the finish line together. Um, it was just a ton of fun to be able to train with him and get into it because he liked to do it too.
What was he, the kind of dad slash coach who would let you win, or was he the kind of dad slash coach that was like, "You're gonna have to earn your place in front of the finish line ahead of me"?
Oh, the latter. I don't think he ever let me win. I think he tried his hardest.
He put a smiley face up on Instagram. Um, was there a moment when you beat him and you were like, "Holy cow! I can't believe I just did this"?
Uh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember like one in particular. I don't know. There was this one. Yeah, he'll know what I'm talking about. It was the awful 5K in Middletown that ended on Main Street, and it was like 8,000 degrees and humid, and we both like, wanted to have heart attacks at the end. Where I was like, he was right, like an epic sprint off down Main Street in Middletown, and like I was like, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I think I was amazed that I was able to pull ahead him by like 100th of a second or something. So I was like, I don't think I have it in me, but he was probably thinking the same thing. We were both dying.
I love it. All right, so do you go back often and like do turkey trots and family 5Ks with him these days?
Nah, not as much. I moved to Colorado, almost 3 years ago now, so I typically get home twice a year. I'll go for Christmas, which I'm really excited about, and then we have an annual family vacation in June, so I'll go back for that. And, we do a lot of, like, training and, like, swimming, and, like, our vacation is in Lake George in upstate New York, so we'll swim in the lake all the time, which is a blast. But there used to be a really good race up there. It was a 10-mile race, but they haven't had it in several years, so I don't think I've actually, well, one year, the first time I came back to Connecticut since I moved, it was to do the Hartford Half Marathon because it was on my birthday. And I was like, I'm gonna go back home and do the Hartford Half on my birthday. So
Your
Mhm.
dad chimed in. He said that he tried to beat you, but you still beat him. And then we have a comment from Teographic. I'm going to pronounce it. There's a period in there. I wish we could see the official race pick of the moment when you beat him, when you beat your dad at the finish line, and then Rory Greenish, the epic family finish. Are these all people that you're aware of? Do you know?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for
I love
listening.
it.
Yeah, Teo's my brother. Hi, Teo. That picture is ridiculous. I have it somewhere. I look like I'm about to have a heart attack, and so does that in the background.
You got to put
Yeah,
it on your stories and tag us so that we could see it and add it to the notes for the show for sure.
yeah,
I
that's a good
for,
one.
and I love the fact that we're having a family reunion right now. This is awesome.
Yeah, Rory's my boyfriend. Hi, Rory. He knows. He's heard all these stories too.
Keep chiming in on Instagram, folks. We love it. We'll get to them. One of the things I do want to talk to you about, because we talked about it during the interview for your How It All Started, was the disordered eating. I've shared with you that I've gone through disordered eating, and still, I don't know that you ever get through it, shall we say. It's still there. It still plays on my mind. And for me, it was the lighter is faster concept, right? The lighter I am,
Mhm.
the faster I will be in triathlon. Um, for you, can you walk us through the disordered eating challenges you've had, the things that you've had to overcome? And then I have some follow up questions about how you interact with your athletes as you coach them, especially when it comes to nutrition. So, if you don't mind, walk us through a little bit of the struggle you've had with disordered eating.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't mine wasn't really the lighter is faster concept. That's not how it started. I did notice that I became a faster runner, and that was like, "Ooh, this is kinda cool." It was like a neat side effect. I think my so I struggled with binge eating disorder, and I think it started kinda unrelated to fitness and triathlon stuff. It was more like stress in my life and things, and it's like spiraled from there. But it was really hard to navigate that as an athlete because I felt like it was this secret side of me that other athletes didn't see. Because I would like binge eating, like you kind of pretty much do it in secret, or
Yep.
like at family parties a lot, where like the people my family would see it. I lived with my parents; they knew it was what was going on. But people, when I go to races, I didn't binge at races, so people didn't really see what was happening. They just saw this one side of me, like, oh, you must eat so healthy, quote unquote. You're an athlete, and then I'd feel so ashamed because I'd be like, well, I last night ate I binged on several 100,000 calories, whatever. So I'd be like, I was thinking like, oh, I'm not a real athlete because a real athlete wouldn't be doing this, or I'd like wake up the next morning kind of still feeling really full and it's like gross, and I'd have to go out and go for a swim, and I'd just feel terrible the whole time and want to restrict and punish myself, and then I'd restrict all day and then do it again that night because when you restrict, your body's like, I just need everything because you've been depriving me. So it's really hard to navigate all of that, especially as an athlete, I think.
Yeah, I went through a lot of that same thing. Like, I had read a book back in the day, I think it was called Racing Weight, and it had pinned gave you a formula to get down to a certain weight, whatever.
Mm,
But binge eating was absolutely the thing. Like, I would, essentially starve myself. And then in the middle of the night, I'd find myself in the pantry with, a box of powdered donuts because I was starving.
mhm,
Um, and it was all hidden. It was absolutely all hidden from family, friends. At the time on my Instagram profile, I would share pictures of this food that I would cook. And by all means, I was eating that food, but I wasn't eating anything else, right? That's one meal out of an entire
yeah,
day,
yeah,
and I just wasn't eating anything else. And I thought, for me personally, like after a race, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, the recovery, you're sitting around and you're eating all of this food with other people, and I didn't feel like I had to hide it them because I was recovering, right? Eating those calories was me recovering. But then when it was said and done and I'd go home, like there would be no more eating because I was like, that's all the calories I can consume in a day. So for
mhm.
you, when like after an event, and I don't know if you were dealing with it when you raced Ironman, but after an event like that, and there's, plenty of pizza and all that stuff sitting around, I found myself gorging on it. Like, how did you um, approach recovery, knowing that I have to recover, but then, dealing with, binge eating disorder simultaneously?
Yeah, I think back then when I was still struggling with it, which was really before the full Ironman, I was kinda recovering by then. Um, I didn't really view it as like recovery from the race. I had that mindset of like, "Ooh, I just did this race. I earned this food." So I wouldn't really eat anything like right at the race venue. A lot of times the races we did, they didn't have stuff I really wanted anyway. Like we would do a race at like 10 o'clock in the morning, they'd have hamburgers. And I was like, if you want that, like fantastic, go for it. I just didn't really want a burger at like 10 a.m. So I wouldn't eat much. And that in itself was a form of restriction. I'd have like a protein shake or something. And then I'd go home and have my dessert later. And then I would binge because I'd be like, oh, I did this race. I'm allowed. This is the one day I'm allowed to do this. But it was not a healthy way of thinking about it. So I didn't really think about it as recovery or even fueling for the next session. It was more like, oh, I earned this.
So what steps have you taken to make your way through this process so that food in and of itself isn't sort of like this thing that hangs over your head as you're preparing to train and race at different distances in endurance sports?
Yeah, it's hard. It's taken a lot of work. It's still a work in progress. I know early on, a lot of it was working with a therapist. I eventually found somebody who specialized in binge eating disorder. So she was really helpful with that kind of thing. Not necessarily for athletes themselves, but just in general, the mental side of it. And then just reframing food and like understanding that it can mean a lot of things. So viewing it as fuel, most importantly, like I need this to feel better when I'm performing and when I'm training. But knowing like it's not just fuel, it's not just fuel, it's also social, it's also fun. It doesn't have to be just food. Food is fuel. If you're not hungry, you shouldn't eat. And if it's only for your training, you should only put things in your body that are going to benefit. Like, no, there's a lot of nuance to it. So it's been hard kind of navigating all of that, and sometimes it's hard to remind yourself like, oh yeah, you need to eat, you need to not skip lunch today because a strong swimmer doesn't skip lunch, or somebody who doesn't think about food all the time is able to enjoy time with their friends, and that person doesn't skip lunch. That's the person you want to be. So kind of like reminding myself of those things, that's hard, but it's to like force yourself to think about those things.
We'll have food as fun conversation here in a moment with our
Excellent.
rapid fired food questions. But one of the things you talk about on your platform on Instagram often is the commentary from people. And for those of you who might be listening to this after we post it to Apple and Spotify on podcast format, we're recording the show live. It is December 3rd, so we are just a handful of days past Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And that would be a moment where a lot of people were gathered together around a table, and some family and friends might say to somebody, oh well, you run a lot so you can eat XYZ, or are you eating all of that food because you plan on running, and sort of making a jab at the person who might be dealing with an eating disorder. Walk me through that process for you, and the idea of commentary on others and how you manage to make your way through those comments.
Yeah, that has definitely been one of the hardest things, or at least was when I was struggling, because I'm already mentally beating myself up, right? I didn't like that I binged. Like I hated this about myself. I was ashamed. So then when somebody's throwing in all these comments, it just like adds to my mental turmoil, and it would make things worse. I would often like say it was like in the middle of the day at work, somebody made a comment. I would often go home and binge because I was really upset about it later. So that didn't help things. And family parties are really hard because what I found is that people comment no matter what. Like let's take Thanksgiving for example. I'll just make something up. Like I could take a small piece of pie and I could say, you know what, I'm just gonna have this because I'm pretty full from dinner and I don't want to feel stuffed and I don't want to binge. And somebody could be like, is that all you're gonna eat? You're not gonna try my this pie? You're not gonna do this? On the other hand, I could be like, you know what, I'm gonna challenge myself to enjoy this food without shame and guilt. So I'm gonna take one piece of every pie. And somebody could look at my plate and be like, oh my God, you're gonna eat all that? So it's like you can't do anything right anyway. Somebody's going to make a comment. Multiple people are going to make comments. So and it's still really hard and it still gets to me sometimes, but I think I've gotten better at finding ways to respond to it. I've come up with ways to like make a joke, or depending on who it is, you could be serious like, hey, like I don't really want to, I don't think you should comment on what I'm eating, like, or like crack a joke, or somebody's like, oh, like I'm being bad, I'm eating 2 pieces of pie. It's like, oh, you're being bad? Like, did you kill someone? Like, like kind of, and putting it into perspective for them. And also understanding that probably almost all of the time their comments are not actually about you, they're about themselves. So if
Yep.
somebody says like, "Oh my god, you're gonna eat all that," maybe in their head they're like, "Gee, I wish I could do that, but I would feel ashamed if I ate all that pie." It's really about them. It's not about you. But I don't know. I try to bring it up and educate because it's like, let's just focus on our own plates. Just you eat your thing and I'll eat my thing. Like why does it have to bother you to look at what I'm eating? Like you don't know what's best for somebody by looking at their plate, right? Like I was saying before, the person who has one piece of pie, that could be overcoming a challenge for them and they're not binging. Person who has 5 pieces of pie, that could be overcoming a challenge because they normally feel real guilty about it and now they're not. So
Yep.
like you don't know what someone's going through. Like just don't make a comment. Just just don't do it. There's other things to talk about. Like you're there. A lot of people view these parties as like food. They're kind of food centric, and I kind of get that because that's how my family kind of grew up. Like food's awesome. Like we
Yeah.
do love food, so it's kind of hard not to sometimes. But like for me, it's like let me try to focus on having a conversation with this person who I haven't seen in a while, and I'll like put down my fork and look them in the eye and drink a bunch of water, like trying to really focus on things that are not just the food, which it can be hard, but those are some tools that I've kind of learned and used over the years.
Yeah, like I've gone through the disordered eating thing. I've had a drinking problem and I've quit alcohol going on, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. It's been so long.
Nice.
Um, but that's a thing too, right? It's like, oh, are you not going to drink? And it's like, well, I haven't had a drink in 13 years. Do you want to see me drunk? Like, kind of
Yeah.
combating that idea with humor in a
Yeah.
sense, right? Because there are conversations that are going to be had that might be difficult. And one of the things I find sort of ironic is like how we, the person who is dealing with the alcohol issue or the disordered eating issue, have to protect the person making the comment, right? Like we feel like, well, I can't be rude to them. So, and it's like, yeah, but we also have to protect our own inner peace and
Mm.
educate to your point, I think, which is an excellent point. The question I want to ask you is in today's society where we have, uh, no matter where you turn, social media is prevalent, right? TikTok,
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of disinformation, there's a lot of peer pressure on people, right? Whether you aren't skinny enough, whether, whatever it is. And I'm sure the athletes you work with see these things. And so, how do you work with your athletes to sort of minimize the peer pressure that social media puts on us as athletes, whether that's from eating, or going to a post race party that has alcohol, or doing your easy run way too hard because you're looking for that thumbs up from Sarah in Sarasota, Florida, who you've never met and never will meet?
Yeah.
Like, how do you work
Yeah.
with them on that side of it?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is sort of leading by example. I feel that I'm very open and genuine on my social media platform. I share the stuff that I'm struggling with as well as my successes, and I feel like my athletes see that, or people who I'd want to work with see that. And I feel like I almost don't even need to have the conversation with them. Obviously, if they want to talk about it and they're struggling with it, I'm happy to do that. But like oftentimes I think they'll just see what I'm doing and they're like, "Oh, like that look that if she can do that, that maybe I can do that too." Or, "Oh, if this could be a good way to navigate that." Or like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. That's a good point." I don't know, just like relating to somebody like me with the struggles as well as the good stuff. I think just seeing another athlete who's been through it and is doing it and continuing to struggle and continuing to fight through it, I think that's can be inspirational for people. At least I hope it is. It's one of my
Yeah.
goals as a coach.
100%. The open, honest, vulnerable conversation. I mean, that's exactly why we built this platform. Ohm has talked about his disordered eating and alcohol abuse. I've talked about mine. We've launched a men's mental health podcast called Enduring Minds, about all of this stuff because we want to build a community of everyday athletes and let them know that the shit you're going through is normal, right? Like it's okay to go through that stuff, and we're here to help you.
Mhm.
Some stuff from the audience. Teo said, even when people think something is kind to say, it's still uncalled for. My guy, Vic, shout out to you in Florida, brother. He said, I eat pecan, pumpkin, and key lime pie and had no regrets. And then
Yeah.
Teo said, now I want key lime pie. Let me tell you, the two of you, I love key lime pie. It's my favorite pie. So now you got me wanting it too.
I gotta say, I'm not a key lime pie person. I made a pumpkin cheesecake for Thanksgiving, and that was glorious.
Well, we're going to jump into the rapid fire food question. Thanks to Vic and Teo. So, but before we
Excellent.
do, I want people to know where they can find you. So, Dina, give them all the details of where they can find you and connect with you if they'd like to either chat with you or bring you on as a coach.
Yeah, thanks. So my social media slash business name is kind of a play on my name and the word triathlon. So it's Dinathlon. So it's DINATHLON. That's my Instagram handle. That's my website, dinathlon.com. My Instagram's linked to my Facebook. It's kind of the same thing. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. I'm not super big on YouTube. I think at some point I'll start branching out and doing more. But Instagram, I would say, is the main thing. Instagram and the website. I'm going to try to get better at putting out blog posts on the website and sending those out via an email list. But yeah, start with Instagram.
And if you want to know more about her that you didn't learn from this conversation, or you just want to learn more before you go there, if you go to runtrimag.com, which is our website, and you type in Grimaldi, Grimaldi, you will be able to find her story. It'll pop up on your screen, and then you can read her How It All Started feature and get to know Dina a little bit better there. So with that being said, are you ready for our rapid fire food questions? And I will preface it with this. Take your time to think about them. You don't have to rapid fire them.
I was like, wait, that's not
Misnomer.
rapid fire.
It's a misnomer. It's just something we used on episode 1 and we haven't given up on it yet.
Fair. I don't know if I'm ready, but let's do it.
Rory's giving you 10 out of 10 on the pumpkin cheesecake with double high five. So that's a good sign.
Oh yeah, he helped me consume that. He knows.
I love it. All right. First question. You are from the East Coast, so I'm really intrigued by what you're going to say. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
I'm for it.
Oh,
I'm for it.
I
haven't had it in ages, but
that's because it doesn't belong there.
I don't know. If you think about it, it's weird. Like fruit and cheese. Like I don't know.
What is Dad Jim? What would he vote on this on?
I don't know.
Yeah, good. That means you've never really had it as a kid at the house. Good job.
That's true.
Yeah. Like pineapple on pizza doesn't belong there. Look, eat it all you want, by all means. Just don't serve it
by
to me.
itself. Just jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Stevie Smith, who is a friend of the show, whom I adore. She is a RD, and she helps a lot of endurance athletes. And we talk about this a lot, but she then brought up a new twist, and she mentioned pickles on a white-based pizza. Are you going into this idea of like, yeah, I could do pickles on a white-based pizza, yes or no?
I'd try it.
Your dad said thumbs down on the pineapple on pizza. Yes.
I can picture him going, ooh.
I love it. All right. So here comes the next one. Red velvet cake. Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
Oh, it's totally just chocolate cake.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
Right.
Nothing wrong with it. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to spend $12.99 for a slice versus $4.99 on the chocolate cake, by all means, get the red velvet.
I don't know. There's something different about it. It's like, yeah, it's red. I don't know. It tastes different because I have no idea. It's good stuff.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm confused. I'm going to need Dad Jim to type. He's now giving me thumbs down. I don't know if we're going in which direction.
He might be a little delayed. He might be still on the pickles on the pizza or something.
That's true. He might be on the pickles on the pizza. Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax coated in sugar?
I mean, I feel like it's a real candy, but I don't like it.
Exactly.
But I was never a big candy person as a kid, like Halloween candy. Like I like chocolate. Like I'd go for all the Kit Kats I could get, but like the hard candy and stuff, I was like, no, I can pass on that.
I love Kit Kats. Yesterday I went to CVS to pick up wrapping paper, and they had buy one, get one free. So, I walked home with 2 of those.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, you did. They have all the crazy flavors now. Like I bought a birthday cake one. I actually still haven't eaten it. It's downstairs, but they have all these wacky Kit Kat flavors now.
I'm in on the mint one. Sign me up for that.
Ooh, so here's a controversial thing. I cannot stand mint. I don't like it.
Are you a person who believes it's just toothpaste?
I just don't like it. Like I don't even use mint toothpaste. I use like a cinnamon toothpaste. Like when I go to the dentist and they floss with the mint thing, I'm like, I'm not a fan.
I gotta tell you, I'm loving the Instagram feedback. Okay, so Teo said the frosting is different with red velvet with an exclamation point.
Oh, but cream cheese frosting for the win. Agreed.
Yes, but you can also get like buttercream or cream cheese frosting on carrot cake, which is the king of all cakes, by the way.
Oh, wait for my dad. He's about to say something. That man loves carrot cake.
Vic is asking if anybody likes candy corn. Rory says, I'm never looking at candy corn the same again. And Vic is chiming in with pistachio Kit Kat is great. We'll have to look for that somewhere.
Pistachio Kit Kat. I haven't seen that
Peeps.
one.
We're going now. We're
There's your answer. Next question.
That was the rapid fire answer I didn't know I needed. Next question.
I don't really love marshmallows. If you toast them and put them in a s'more, they're great, but like plain ass marshmallows. Like I had a friend in high school who could just house a whole bag of marshmallows. I'm like, I don't know.
So s'mores, how do you when you toast a marshmallow, are you going like slightly toasted warm, or are you going charcoal briquette?
No, I'm not the person who lights it on fire and then goes, ooh,
Yes,
wait for
that's
5 seconds and then blows it out. No burn to a crisp. We like the nice golden brown.
I need it as a torch, like Indiana Jones going through the Temple of Doom. Here's
That's
one thing I learned. I forget who told me this, but they said if you light it on fire, create the charcoal briquette, blow it out, peel it off, and then put the marshmallow back in the fire to char it again, it's like double time the best flavor. So that's going to be my next experiment.
That's funny because I will do the lightly brown toasted, but then it only toasts the outside and the inside is still kind of that part I don't love the texture. So
Yeah,
sometimes I'll just take the outside off and then re-toast the inside and try
there
to get
you go.
it toasted too.
Vic says that carrot cake is the salad of cakes, which I'm guessing is a bad thing, but man, a good Caesar salad's not bad. And your dad is yes on the carrot cake, and Teo is texture is everything with the Tommy DeVito hands. If you're a New York
Yes.
Giant fan,
Yes.
Circus peanuts. Are circus peanuts a real candy, or are they just the Amazon styrofoam spray painted orange?
I don't know that I've ever had circus peanut.
Good on you. Don't ever let it happen. They're terrible.
They're styrofoam, basically.
Yeah, they're terrible. Like they're terrible.
Huh.
When you go to grandma's house and the candy bowl has the butterscotch, the caramel square, and the strawberry filled hard candy, and the mint. So there's 4 of them. Which one are you grabbing out of grandma's candy jar?
Well, it's not the mint. Yeah.
True. I don't know why I threw that in.
Caramel square. That sounds good. She does have those. How did you know? Like, I'm not even kidding. Like last time I went there, I took one.
It's like, because every grandma has that. So 2 weeks ago, I did Food Fight Friday, and it was caramel themed. So we'll go back to caramel. The caramel square, Caramello, Rolo, Twix. Which of those 4 is on the top of the give me that one when it comes to caramel candy?
Probably the square, but I don't know if I've had the 2 in the middle that you said. I feel like I didn't really eat candy as a kid. So like Twix I've had before, but the others I'm like, I don't think I've ever actually consumed one. I'm not even sure what they're comprised of. So I don't know that I can give a fair answer because I haven't tried all of them.
I love introducing people to my wonderful world of candy, because while you're at the store, look for the caramel cold brew M&Ms and the caramel M&Ms, because those 2 are fantastic, especially if you like coffee.
Those both sound really good.
They're so good. 100% the thing to go grab.
Excellent. Noted.
So you're not a key lime pie fan. What is your favorite pie?
Favorite pie. That's tough. I do like pumpkin pie, but there is so when my aunt comes to visit, they're going to know what I'm going to say. When my aunt comes to visit, there's a really good bakery up where she lives in upstate New York. And there's a really good apple pie and a blueberry pie that she brings. I think the blueberry one might be my favorite. It's just that filling is just so delicious. You eat it with vanilla ice cream and it's like, yeah, it's really good.
Maybe a little bit of lemon zest in there too to just heighten it.
That'd be good. I like that.
Let's go back to cake now. Your favorite cake is?
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin cake?
It's really, really dense because I'm a like undercooked baked goods kind of person, like doughy bread. So it's like this really, really dense, borderline cooked pumpkin. It's almost more like the consistency of a pumpkin bread than a cake. And it's got cream cheese frosting. Oh man, it's so good.
I've had this argument too. about like pumpkin bread, pumpkin loaf, that kind of stuff. Like that's not cake, right? It's like a
Mm,
pumpkin bread type of thing if it comes in that pan. Um,
yeah.
I've had that argument about, I love food and I'm more than happy to argue about food, but by all means, eat whatever is going to make you happy as well.
Oh, yeah.
Ice cream, favorite flavor of ice cream is?
Sea salt caramel talenti.
Whoa.
Technically, it's not ice cream, so if I can give
Yeah,
another answer if you want. It's gelato.
yeah, that's
But
gelato. Yeah, give me
so
an ice
there's
cream.
all of those people who keep chiming in are gonna know this because they've all been there now. But there's an ice cream place here. It's called McGill's, and they've got two flavors. One of them is salted caramel Oreo, and the other one is salted caramel cheesecake. And every
Oof.
time I go there, it's like one or the other. I don't know if I can decide which one I like better. They are amazing.
I think the worst part of doing this show, for me, is that it's at like 5 o'clock and it's like dinner time, and I just want to go to the grocery store and pick up all of these desserts and candies instead.
I was just gonna say dinner is after this for me, and I'm like, I'm ready. This is great.
All right, so you're about to get in a spaceship with Matt Damon to blast off into Mars and only eat sweet potatoes for the rest of your life. What is the meal you're going to eat before you get into that spaceship and blast off?
Oh God. Oh, that's real tough. Hey, man, that's a really tough question. I feel like there are a handful of meals that people know me for that I like. One of them being ice cream. Uh, I'm a huge pancake fan.
Ooh.
But then there's mac and cheese, which has been my favorite food since I was like 2. So I might have to go with that.
I, little known secret, or maybe very popular secret, I have no idea. I've never had mac and cheese in my life. And I
Really?
will go to my grave because of that exact reaction when people are like, really? You've never done it? And I want to keep that reaction for the
Now
rest of
it's
my
just a
life.
challenge.
Yes, 100%.
Man, that's crazy. That's weirder than me not liking mint.
Are we sure about that? We have to put a poll up.
Yeah. Come on, family, chime in. That's
If
weird.
if Rory could yell through the screen, he would right now. The letters "what" are all capitalized.
Thank you.
Our guy Vic is like, I was ready for bed, but now I'm watching this and having a shortbread cookie. This is
Yeah.
the kind of influence I want to have on the world.
I was gonna say we are a great influence right now. It is so good.
Teo and Rory have called both of your salted caramel ice creams the dynamic duo. And Teo
Yes.
even went Spanish and wrote "Por qué no los dos?"
Every time I need to decide between two things, anything, not food, whatever, I hear Teo's voice in my head. ¿Por qué no los dos? You
Vic
guys are
Vic
awesome.
had Vic had mac and cheese for the first time when he was 23, which is pretty
Wow.
amazing. He's
Wow.
Brazilian, and he has turned me on to acai bowls, in the sense that in Brazil they consume it more as a savory food than the sweet food that we
Hmm.
experience here in the U.S., which was incredible.
Hmm.
Your dad just chimed in, no mac and cheese. Yeah, that's nuts. Teo put a bunch of laughing in there. He wrote, it's like an anti-quest. I have no choice but to support, unfortunately. You're exactly right. 100%. Not giving in. You said did you say you were a bread fan? Like just bread in general?
Oh yeah, I mean bread in general, but like undercooking baked goods. Like my
Okay.
dad knows because I sort of adapted his homemade sandwich bread recipe. But you know, like you're supposed to cook bread to like 190 degrees. I cook it to like 125, maybe.
Oh, so
It's
it's like
like
really soft in the middle
it's
then.
real doughy. Like
Yeah.
if anyone's watched the Great British Baking Show, Paul Hollywood would call that stodgy. It's
Stodgy.
stodgy.
That's one of my favorite shows because I only understand like 30% of what they say, and I laugh my ass off the entire time.
I have to put the subtitles on for some of them. Don't tell me who. I'm like halfway through the last episode of this season, so don't tell me who won.
I won't tell you. But do you recall? I think it was season 9 when the lady went and she was supposed to make the toffee pudding, and she forgot to put flour in the recipe.
Oh my
And so when
god.
she presented it to them, she said, "I made for you gluten-free toffee
Yeah,
puddings." It
I remember that lady.
was
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
I could not stop laughing at that. All right, so we're getting close to the end of our show here, but this has been so much fun. I have a few more food questions for you.
Yay.
Um, Chocolate chip cookie or oatmeal raisin?
chocolate chip, but we do have a really, really good oatmeal cookie recipe that my parents make. They know it's got nutmeg in it. It like, oh man, it brings it to like a whole other dimension. So
Interesting.
classic chocolate chip probably has to win, but that is a really good cookie.
Favorite cereal?
Oh man, I don't eat cereal too much anymore. I might have to go with honey bunches of oats because that's what I grew up with. Again, that's kind of like a staple of my childhood. But I would like pick out all the big bunches and save them for the end like a weirdo.
Like I get that I'm turning 51 here real soon, but my cereal choices are like a 75-year-old. I love Raisin Bran, Grape Nuts, and shredded wheat. Like I
Dude,
love it.
dude, grape I have grape nuts and shredded wheat downstairs. They're so
Yes,
good. They're so good.
Grape Nuts is like
The big shredded wheat, like the biscuits that are
yes,
like
yeah,
yay
the
big.
whole
Yeah, yeah.
bale of hay or whatever. Um,
Yeah,
and Grape Nuts is the Pop Rocks of cereal. Like, how could you not like that? It's so good.
it's delicious.
Teo said the correct answer is oatmeal chocolate chip. Can't disagree. But I do love like an oatmeal raisin cookie, especially if they put dried cranberries in there too for a little extra chew. It's fantastic.
My dad would love that. He probably does that sometimes.
Yeah, like, and if you can add like a squeeze of orange juice in there to get some little orange flavor in it, oh, good grief. I'm
Interesting.
over the moon.
Yeah.
Based on this conversation, I presume you are a fan of brownies.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know which reaction was faster, the reaction to the brownies or the peeps, but either way they work. Tray of brownies is sitting on the counter, just came out of the oven, cooled down a little bit. Are you the person who goes to the corner to grab the edge, or are you going straight to the middle for the ooey gooey?
I am excavating the hell out of that middle.
I don't.
I'm that person you walk up and there's just like a chunk taken. You're like, who the fuck did that? Hi, right here.
Your mom chimed in with Captain Crunch, couple of question marks. Did you eat that as a kid?
So that's like it was like a vacation food, not to use that
go.
in like you can only eat these on
Yeah.
vacation, but like it was just one of those things where like she only let us buy that as kids when we went on vacation. So we to this day we still buy Captain Crunch when we go to that Lake George vacation. That shit
I'm a
is good.
huge fan of Captain Crunch too. Captain Crunch with berries is so good. Rory's my man. Got to go for that corner, 100%.
See this, we haven't actually made brownies. I have that brownie mix downstairs. I keep forgetting about it. We got to make it. But once we do, he's going to just take the whole outer edge and I'll take the middle and it's going to be wonderful.
We need to get tagged in these pictures when you make the brownies.
I will share them with you.
So you put vanilla ice cream on your blueberry pie. What are you putting vanilla ice cream on your brownie as well?
I will do that, but kind of like off to the side, so it's not like the whole. I still get some brownie by itself, and then some together, and then some ice cream. You know, you got to have all the different flavors and tastes.
Your reaction to the M&M's caramel cold brew makes me believe you enjoy coffee.
I do. I've been drinking it more recently. I don't make it for myself at home. I drink green tea a lot of the time, but I've been going out to some like local coffee shops and trying lattes and whatnot. And so I do like it. I just don't drink it every single day.
So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Go to your grocery store, get that pint of Talenti, but get the coffee flavored one.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Get that batch of brownies made. Then put the centerpiece in the bottom of the mug if you need to. Put the Talenti on top of it, and now you've just created like this ice mocha. And as the Talenti melts, it just gets gooier and more fantastic. And you'll never look at brownies ever the same again.
That sounds incredible. It really does. That sounds so good.
It's Dina, Teo, Rory, Stacy, Jim, the whole Grimaldi family. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fireside Chat. Vic, my guy, thanks for joining us too. We'll see you all next week for our next Fireside Chat. And make sure you check out the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcast. Like I said in the intro, we have 8 shows. We've got something for everybody, from food to music to Q&As and serious conversation to lots of laughters. Have a great night. Dina, thank you so much again. We are out.
Thank you, Jason. This has been a blast.